And with this, I would say let's go into the first discussion round of today and a bit of a political reality check looking at climate neutral cities by 2030. Please welcome on stage the lead of this discussion, Deputy Director General of DG Environment for the Cities Mission Manager, Patrick Child.
Good morning, everyone. And I'd like to invite my colleagues on the panel to join me as well. So please, if you could come up, and I'll introduce everyone in a moment. But I'd like just to kick things off with a few personal reflections. I mean, firstly, it's great to be here. As a public official, you rarely get the opportunity to do something as rewarding, as exciting as being the mission manager for our mission on climate neutral and smart cities. And so, I want to thank the Commission, the Commissioners, for giving me this responsibility. And I want to thank all of you for being so welcoming and open as I've been traveling around, seeing the amazing transformations that your participation in this mission is bringing. Whether that's in terms of the ways that you work inside your municipal organizations, the way you organize and reach out with citizens and stakeholder engagement, or the way that you are also spreading the word among the communities of cities beyond those that are in the mission. And if I think there are three, perhaps, messages that I'm hearing as I've been going around, and I've been to, I think, 12 member states, and I've 17 cities in the last year since I was appointed. And three things that I'm hearing. I mean, firstly, the level of enthusiasm and engagement around the climate city contracts, the work that you're doing on those, the need for a high level of ambition, but also the message to us, need to be flexible, pragmatic, and take account of the local realities. And that's certainly a message that we take on board. Secondly, we hear many places that we go the importance of getting the relationship right between national governments, regional authorities, and the cities themselves. And that's something we're trying to do with the national networks. And of course, it's different depending on the political situations in different member states. But it's certainly a message that I bring to the government representatives when I meet them, and beyond just the ones who deal with Horizon Europe, the research program, but also relevant line ministries. And I hope that with the evaluation that Marc Lemaitre mentioned a moment ago, coming at a political level, we'll have an opportunity also to engage during the Spanish presidency with ministers, members of the European Parliament and others, Committee of the Regions, because that's very important. The third thing that we hear is, of course, the importance of financing. And I think Marc Lemaitre was very clear that this must go beyond public funds, even if, as he rightly says, there has never been more European funding available. And so, to set the scene for our discussions, just wanted to share with you those three themes. The need for pragmatism, flexibility, but ambition and enthusiasm around the Climate City contract. The need to get the relationship right between national, regional and city governments, and the need for us to continue to work through the national networks to take the word beyond the cities in the mission and beyond. So now, without waiting further, I want to introduce the colleagues in the panel. And we first have Mr. Emil Boc, familiar to many, Mayor of Cluj-Napoca, the largest city in Transylvania, Romania, President of the Association of Romanian Municipalities, and also Chair of the Commission for Territorial Cohesion Policy and the EU Budget, the co-chair in the Committee of the Regions, and also a former Prime Minister of Romania. We have Emine Ave, who is Mayor of Turku, Finland, former CEO of the Turku Chamber of Commerce, serves as Vice President and Global Executive Committee of ICLE, one of the global local government network for sustainability. We have Anders Almgren, Mayor of Lund in Sweden, professional background as a technical expert on low energy buildings and environmental impact of buildings, having served also in the National Committee of Planning and Community Development of the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions. We have Hanna Gronkiewicz-Waltz. She is the chair of the Climate Neutral and Smart Cities Board, a lawyer and professor of jurisprudence, served as mayor of Warsaw for 12 years, and before that, chairman of the National Bank of Poland, and really has helped with the colleagues on the mission board, and many of them are here today, and very happy to welcome them. Really helped us shape the mission, and now working with us on its implementation. And finally, we have Karen van Danzig, who is the urban envoy for the Dutch government, affiliated with the Ministry of Interior and Kingdom Relations. I think she's unique in the European Union as occupying such a position, but certainly it's been a pleasure to work with her in recent months over the development of the mission and more widely on the climate neutral objectives. So I'd like perhaps just to kick off our discussion, and I'm going to try and keep it brisk, with a first question to Mayor Bock. Cluj-Napoca is among the first 12 cities to have submitted a climate city contract for our review. And just like, give you opportunity to share a bit your experience with colleagues here about, how did you approach the design of the contract, and what would be your main recommendations to people who are perhaps, hoping to submit their contracts later this year or perhaps early next year? So, Mayor, please.
Thank you, Patrick. First of all, I would like to tell you that our climate city contract is not just a technicality. It's a part of a vision. What kind of vision? It's about what kind of city are we looking for in the future. So it's a city which is emphasizing a vision based on a new model of economical growth. That new model of economical growth is based on green and digital, because the previous model of economical growth based on fossil fuel, it's over. So we are moving with the city from the industrial perspective to the knowledge economy, from the industrial perspective to the climate neutral city. So the climate city contract, it's a part of this kind of vision of new model of economical growth. The second aspect is that climate city contract, it's top-down and bottom-up perspective. You have to have also vision, but also to start from the bottom up. And I think it's one of the key of our success. And you have to have your citizens on board, you have to have industry on board, the entire society, because this kind of new model of economical growth, it requires us to change the way we live, the way we move, the way we work, and the way we consume. It requires to work together. If you do not understand that, it's very difficult to move with a technicality like climate city contract. Also, you need to change the entire vision of your policy as a city. So, in every decision you take as a mayor, in every public policy you promote as a mayor in the local council, you have to have in mind the impact on climate neutral city. Every decision should make a positive impact on climate neutral city. So to reduce the gas emissions in every decision you take, and also to promote with industries, with private companies, with all. But the first engine, it's the city, it's the mayor office and the local council to have this kind of spirit, I would say, of climate neutral city in every decision. If you have your mindset on that area, definitely you might be successful. If you don't have the mindset for that, it's difficult, because everything starts with the mindset of your city as a journey. So we want to create a climate neutral city where people can not just thrive, not just survive, a place where people can thrive. It's important to show to the people this kind of option. So we had the great support from the city advisors who helped us to clarify and prioritize our climate neutrality action portfolio for 2030 using an evidence-based approach. So thank you to them. And last but not least, because you mentioned if I would recommend to other cities, I would like to mention that the mission approach is already showing its result, and I would like to mention that the letter of support to the mission on climate neutral and smart cities, to the project group of commissioners on research and innovation, today has more than 67 signature cities. So we have 67. I remember that when together with Mayor of Warsaw and in the presence of Commissioner Adina Valian and Mission Manager Patrick Child, we sent the letter, we had just 46 signatures. And in this very moment, we have 67 signatures as the cities. And this is a sign that it is going to work, and it work for the future. So it's a great experience, but never lose the contact with the bottom up, keeping up the vision, and have the plan. A goal without a plan is just a wish, as Antoine de Saint-Exupéry said. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And indeed, I mean, I think the important thing is to remember that the Climate City contract is not an end in itself, but rather the vehicle with which we are able to work together in order to develop workable plans and then to take them forward for delivery. And thank you also for all of you who signed the letter that the Mayor just mentioned, because it has a very positive impact on the discussion we've been having internally on the review of the mission, and really this vote of confidence coming from the cities was extremely precious. Before I let you go though, Mayor, I'd like to ask you a slightly different question with your other hat, perhaps, because as I said, you're a very leading and influential figure in the European Committee of the Regions. And as we've been discussing, as we finalize the contract, we move perhaps the focus onto how we're going to mobilize the necessary investments. And seen from a sort of European level perspective, or you know, how you're approaching that locally, you know, what's your view on how we should really structure this financing the transition of the whole city to climate neutrality?
Here I want to emphasize just a few things. First, we as a city, we do everything we can to support the investment, and we are politically engaged in the process. So we have budget allocations, we are increasing the property tax, we are providing loans, we are cooperating with local and regional authorities, we track private investors, so we do everything we can as a city. But my message as a mayor and also as a representative of the European Committee of the Regions is the following one. Local and regional authorities alone cannot deliver the means required. We cannot do it alone. We are doing our best, and we are using all the means possible. Of course, as a city, for example, I have the level of indebtedness under 10%. I can have 35%. So I'm going to use this possibility to increase the budget financing using loans or issuing bonds. But we cannot be left alone. If it's not going to be a joint venture, a joint competition, and a joint effort, European, national, regional, and local level, the mission cannot succeed. If we have everyone on board, definitely it's going to be successful. My second message is that promote synergies, work on different projects and connect them, not let them be isolated in different districts. Promote synergies and opportunities in terms of direct funding for cities would be one way to do that. The third element I want to mention that we have the mission label, which should be a catalyst for future investments, and also use the Partnership for Regional Innovation as a tool to modernize and to have best experiences. Last but not least, I would like to mention the last aspect. Our mission as a city cannot be dissociated from the climate neutrality trajectories of the region. So we have to understand we are part of a region. We are not alone. So we have to take into account the entire region when we're talking about climate neutral cities. And of course, we have to understand that we have 100 climate neutral cities, but there are other cities which are willing to move forward and should help also them. So I think we have to understand we are in the same boat, working together, and let's have first 100 climate neutral cities to show to the world, to Europe, we can do that. If so far we don't have any city in the world, in Europe, but if we succeed to have 100 climate neutral cities, then it is going to be a model for all of us and to achieve our climate neutrality aims.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, strong support for those very wise words, and certainly we will learn from them, I'm sure, moving forward. But I'd now like to turn to Mayor Mina Ave from Turku. Now, Turku is aiming for carbon neutrality by 2029, which I understand is also the 800th anniversary of the city. And so, you know, you have set an even higher level of ambition than for others in the mission. But I'd just like to, you know, hear from, you know, you how the mission and your participation in the mission is helping to sort of deliver these impressively ambitious objectives.
Thank you. First, I think I have to disappoint you a bit and apologize if making you depressed. But if you think that climate work and cutting emissions is hard enough and enough, I'm going to say it is not. It's not enough to cut emissions and target for climate neutrality anymore. We have to strengthen the biodiversity and think about the circularity, the way we use our resources, how we think about our globe as a whole. And this is a comprehensive challenge, and it's going to be even more difficult and more challenging for each of us. And when we think that we are reaching something, we are actually just getting even into the more difficult situations. So in Turku, while we are targeting the climate neutrality by 2029 and being climate positive thereafter, we are at the same time targeting to be a resource-wise city by 2040, which means zero waste and putting materials into circularity and being one of the leading nature cities in the world. And we are very proud to be one of the mission cities. It's really an important thing for us, and it's really giving us the possibility to share our ideas, our ways of working, and also learn. And not only to learn, but to collaborate with other cities. And that's what I think is one of the most important things that we can do around here as well. And in Finland, for instance, we already gained some, low-hanging fruits from here. We are working together with all 6 mission cities very closely. We set up something called Climate Mission Finland 2030 network, and there are ministries also involved, and I can see here as well at least the Vice Mayor of Tampere and the Espoo representatives. So you can also see that we are here together to bring our, our ambitions to be shared with all of us. But being selected as one of the EU mission cities, it really strengthens our climate work as well. And it means also new opportunities for the other actors in our region. And I think also that's very important, that it's giving a support and a new boost to things that we are doing and creating a new kind of momentum, giving new tools and bringing also really stakeholders together. But what I think also which is very important is that there is possibilities for EU funding and for the mission funding and in investments, and this is also very important. For instance, in Turku we have already invested for energy sector more than 500 million euros. We are going to do a lot of more investments into our mobility and traffic network. So it's really taking also a lot of resources. So all that we are doing, we need support to, and this is a way to do that also, and I think that's very important. And not only to working within the national level with the cities there, all the mission cities together, but also working in different levels, with city levels, with national levels, EU levels, global levels. We need to be also an example and model for that this is possible to do. We know what to do, we are able to do it, we need a political will to do that. And just giving you one more example, what I'm at the moment very excited and quite inspired, that we are working together with Turku University. We are having something called 1.5 degree lifestyle campaign, where we are supporting our residents and companies to kind of find a way of living for 1.5 degrees lifestyle. And together with the university and the Department of Psychology, we are actually working together how to nudge or a little bit push people and companies to do the right selections when they every day they do anyway. That's the most important part, what we every day do. So what to do every day when you are having the decision to, whatever, taking a car or taking the bicycle, what would encourage you to take those wiser and more sustainable decisions? And this is really, really exciting, and we have actually got pilot funding for this one also for the mission, so this is very important for us too. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, and I couldn't agree more with your first point as a representative of DG Environment. I mean, the importance of linking up what we're trying to do in the sort of strictly decarbonisation with broader policies on nature, on zero pollution and circularity, because all of it comes together and we won't achieve it unless we look at everything in the round. But coming back to decarbonisation, and just to pick your brains a bit further, Mayor, on the experience you've got with some of the heavy industrial, hard-to-abate sectors. Can you share with us the different strategies that you can adopt to deal with the situation that some sectors advance more quickly than others, and some things are outside the direct control of the municipal authorities? How do you use your influence and leadership to support that?
Yes, that's a very important question, and similarly than everywhere we know what to do, but it's not always so easy to do that. And we have great plans, but put them into the implementation phase and really do them more effectively, more quicker is important. And one of the things that we are lacking behind, where we are not being that successful than I was hoping, is mobility and traffic. And we really need to invest more and quicker and be more effective in implementation of our sustainable urban mobility plan, our investments for the local traffic, especially for the trams, bicycle lines, and really putting effort on that how we will change the people's attitudes from having the, personal right to use their own cars every day into that it's their personal right to use their bicycles or their own two legs by going everywhere, and also not only because of the environment, but also for their own health. This is also very important, and we see in Finland also that that's something that people are not actually doing enough, and it's affecting in many ways for our health. So definitely mobility and traffic issues are something that we have to do more. We have to be more effective and more quicker to do those things. But what we have really succeeded is the transformation of energy sector. So we have been doing a lot of investments there. We have transferred our energy system from fossils to renewables and finding different kind of solutions there all the time, how to be more better in that area as well. And one of the great examples I want to share, because I started emphasizing how important it's also for the biodiversity and circularity, so I have a great example for that in Turku, what we have done. And it's called wastewater management plant in Kakola. And the first thing is that while we are cleaning our waters, our wastewaters, so we are saving our archipelago sea, which is very dear for us, and it's very, very, very polluted sea actually. So we are saving our environment. At the same time, we are taking the heat out of the wastewater, so we use all the heat, excess heat in our distance heating system, and it's actually for the 10% of our residents to use, so it's actually quite a lot. And in the end of the result of that process, you get some sludge, which you can take out and do biogas out of it to be used in cars and so on. And in the end of the day, it's also economically very wise thing to do, so it's a perfect example of circularity, environmental, and cutting emissions. And your third point, how we are coping with those issues which we cannot regulate ourselves, and how we work with the companies, and I think it's very important. It's only half of the work that we can do by ourselves as a city. We need our residents, and we need our companies to work with us. And we are working very closely with the companies and different sectors, and giving you just three short, quick examples concretely. Maritime sector, we have a big shipyard in Turku, which is making the biggest cruisers in the world. And they are at the moment working how to do that business to be carbon neutral, how to build carbon neutral cruisers. The second example from pharmaceutical industry, we have a big pharma companies in our city. Bayer Finland is Bayer is one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world, and their site in Turku, it's carbon neutral already by now. They are just opening a new line, which is zero emissions, and that's very, very great thing that they are doing. And third, a different kind of example, we are having in a couple of weeks' time a big festival in Turku called Ruisrock. It's one of the biggest and oldest rock festivals in Finland. And they are also working quite a lot how to do these kind of big events to be sustainable, how to use the materials in a sustainable way, how to circulate things, how people are actually getting there so they would use their local traffic, whatever, coming by foot, by bicycles and so on. So this is kind of things that we are working concretely with the companies where we cannot actually regulate them by ourselves.
Thank you very much indeed. I'd now like to move on to Mayor Anders Almgren from Lund. I was happy to visit Lund a few months ago. But of course, Sweden has a particular sort of background history of a national scheme of the Climate City contracts, which have been a source of inspiration for us. And so perhaps it would be interesting to hear from you, Mayor, how you have sort of experienced over a slightly longer time horizon the different iterations of the Climate City contracts, and what lessons perhaps we can draw from the way now we're trying to sort of roll out this approach at a European level too. So please.
Thank you. Yes, the City of Lund has been part of this national collaboration within what we call the viable cities in Sweden, with the predecessor of the European Climate City contracts for quite a few years before the pandemic. And for us, it actually fit very well into our agenda for ecological sustainability. And of course, you can always get good a lot of things from these collaborations. But it was also one way to step up on a national level. So for us, it was more or less obvious. Lund was already ahead of that, a city that actually addressed climate change quite early. We invested a lot in sustainable transportation, a fossil-free district heating system, and a lot of energy conservation in existing houses, etc., etc. But even while we were at it, so to speak, we weren't good enough. So it was quite obvious that within these climate city contracts we could even step up further. I think the most important thing, to take just one example, that we actually learned, it was that we had to stress much harder to collaborate with others locally. We more or less were stuck in a way that the companies and the NGOs and other local authorities, they looked for the city to solve the problem, so to speak. But within this dialogue with the national climate city contracts, we got much more aware, but also could stress the local collaboration, not at least with the companies on a local level. So that was actually very much on the shelf, so to speak, with that way of working. Now we formed quite recently a coalition called Co-Action Lund, where we established what we call a system demonstrator. It's actually one part of the city where we stress these collaborations even further. So even though the whole of Lund are on target to be climate neutral by 2030, this city district, we try to achieve a role model within the city, so to speak. And there are some 30 companies, many of them being global market leaders, Lund University, which is the biggest university in Sweden, and a lot of NGOs collaborating within that city district. So, and with that system demonstrated, we take a more holistic perspective, not only on climate transition, but also on business models and the way we have mentally to change to address these issues. So I think that was the prime example what the national climate city contracts actually worked for us in the first case.
Thank you very much. Can I just build on that? I mean, your point about fostering and really investing in collaboration with different stakeholders from the very beginning, I think is vitally important. But just also to bring that to the collaboration with the national authorities, because there too I think Sweden has some interesting experiences to share with viable cities in particular as a sort of focus of the national network. And perhaps you could just say a word or two about that.
Yes, I think as the city of Lund, but all the cities in Sweden, I would say, has, from a historical point of view, been quite lucky that we have had national governments that actually want to be front runners in the fight against climate change. And that no matter if it was my party in the government or others. So that actually has been the history. But now we see a bit of transition. We don't really see that the new government actually stressed these issues quite as good. Fortunately, we have all the national agencies in Sweden, and they are really strong by themselves. So we have a great support by national agencies. I think quite few of them are represented here today. So we still have the national support. But one example is that all the cities in Sweden expected, because it was a national decision, that about 70% of the reduction target in the transport sector should be stressed by national legislation, national regulations. But now that is changing. On the national level, from the government side, they are not stressing these issues quite as forcefully as earlier. And now we have on the National Climate Council, let's say, that with new policies in place, maybe we won't make these targets. So for us, we are in a bit of a point of a balance, where to go, so to speak. And as many of you know, national legislations that regulate what cities can do varies between our countries. But as mayors and as cities, we have the muscles, and there's much we can do. But if the national support isn't like 100%, it's kind of hard. But to sum it up, from a historical point of view, to work on these multi-level targets to address climate change, we have really good experiences. But I think now we are more or less at the tipping point to what could be the next step.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, the title of this session is, of course, a political reality check, and I mean, we all face different political realities in different member states, and I think the key challenge is indeed to develop national networks and structures which are sufficiently robust and sufficiently sort of well established to navigate the changing political tides that are, of course, unavoidable. But thank you very much, Mayor. I'd now like to come to Hanna Grankovic-Faltz, who, as I said at the beginning, has really been supporting us with her colleagues in the mission board, both in the design phase and now as we are rolling out the mission at scale. So perhaps an easy question to start off. I mean, how do you see the main sort of achievements? You know, what have we achieved so far, and maybe, you know, the things that still need to be addressed? So, Hanna, please.
Thank you, Patrick. I think that, you know, we started our work already in 2019. It was first mission board. I would like to welcome Anna-Lisa, who was our rapporteur and now works for Bologna. So we handed our report after 1 year of hard work to the former Commissioner Gabriel. And we knew since the beginning that we have to propose something new tools, new solutions. And the most important two tools which we invented, it was Climate City Contact, CCC, and labor mission labor. So these are very mysterious but very important things, and CCC is already prepared by the cities. And what else? We knew that something has to be changed in the cities. For example, what? The style of governance. And in two directions, this style of governance had to change, vertical and horizontal. Vertical, it means that should be better cooperation among the different levels of administration. National, which is not so easy sometimes, as it was mentioned by a colleague here, and regional, and of course local governance. On the local governance, it was maybe the easiest way, because in fact almost in all cities were created a special unit for climate, which didn't exist before. in the previous years. But also some states, some countries give a good example. These are, I mentioned, Austria, Greece, France, Spain, and Sweden, because they have a special structures to support, to support this big action to be climate neutral in 2030. Frankly, I can say that in the beginning, when we delivered this report, we were a little bit scared. Will we get 100 cities for such big challenge? And we are waiting for the announcement of our general manager, and we said, oof, 377 applied to the mission and to the EU, to the Commission, and we were saved because it was a very ambitious program. And now we have these 100 cities and 12 from associated countries and neighboring countries, which is very important. I think that maybe soon it will be also the cities join in different way from Ukraine when the war will be over. I'm from Poland, so it's the reason why I mentioned it. Also, the other thing, the achievement was that we created a linkage between the city mission and EU programs. So what was already done, such as Connecting Europe Facility, the LIFE program, and the Urban Innovation Action. And these are very good precedents. We hope that also structural funds of the Cohesion Policy and Innovation Fund will join the city's mission and the cities. We count on you, Mayor of Cluj, because you are the member of the commission, of the Committee of the Regions, yes. And you run an very important commission from this point of view. And so, what is our achievement? We addressed on 21st of March a letter to Executive Vice President Vestager. She is now leading the Commissioner's project group, asking for sustained support for the mission. I think that we need sustained support of the mission by the highest level of the power of the authorities of the EU. And we think also that it is important to achieve Green Deal results with the cities, because without cities it can't be feasible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah. And thanks again also to all the colleagues in the board who are here with us and for this very timely and I think powerful letter that you addressed to our commissioners, and the point you make about the need for high-level political support for the mission I think is very well made, and with the adoption in the coming days of the evaluation report, which even if our Director General wasn't ready to anticipate the contents, I can perhaps share with you all that there will be a strong positive message of recognition of the progress in the city's mission so far, and therefore a commitment to carry it forward with renewed intensity and enthusiasm. And I hope we'll hear that also from Vice President Timmermans when he addresses us at the end of the day today. But looking ahead, Hannah, I'd like to take advantage of you still being here to perhaps ask you how you see the contribution of the board and your board members in the upcoming review process around the Climate City contracts.
So I think that the Cities Mission Board will carefully review the 12 Climate City contracts submitted already to the EU, and we will provide recommendations in line with our, however, advisory role. And we have a subgroup run by Christos Nicolaides, who is with us, and this group will organize, the review which we would like to make. There are already some people who voluntarily would like from our mission to be the evaluation or review maybe is a better word, concerns all three parts of Climate City contract: the political commitment and vision, the action plan, and the corresponding investment plan. And we hope that we provide our work, we start our input in the second half of July. It's the tentative time, of course. And I think that we have to prepare a template for the board contribution to the review process, because it should be done in an organized way.
Thank you very much, Hannah. I'm conscious that time is moving on, even though the timer at the front of me has been switched off, perhaps because I'm already so woefully over time. But I'm glad we still have got the opportunity to have an exchange with Karen van Danzig, who, as I said at the beginning, is uniquely, I think, the Dutch sort of spokesman around the climate neutrality in cities, and perhaps from your perspective, if you could just share with us how you see the mission taking root in your country, and how are you trying to develop a sort of strategy for city-to-city collaboration?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'm not a spokesperson for the 7 cities. They're actually sitting in the room. Yeah. They each have their own voice, and also together they have a coordinated voice. So just to elaborate a little bit on my own function as Dutch urban envoy, it is unique, I think. I'm hopeful to meet another one, actually. I hope another country would love to have such a function. It was created during the Dutch presidency in 2016. And the mission is to strengthen the position and role of cities in the EU and urban areas, obviously, also. For that, I'm an ambassador for urban interests and also for sustainable urban development. And I advocate, I think has been said a lot here, advocate multi-level governance. It's something that the Netherlands has been doing for a very long time. And we believe this is the way to move forward. My role actually is, well, usually it's a lot of verbs, like drive, facilitate, connect, advocate, and represent the Netherlands. So you can actually say I'm pretty multi-level on myself. And that's quite complicated, or could be complicated. Much of my work then goes into connecting parties and also finding a lot of common ground within the EU and in the Netherlands. But to your question about the mission in the Netherlands, it started actually with the cities. It didn't start with the national government. It started with the city. They saw the potential, they embraced it, and they applied. Actually, there was 12 cities applying, and there were 7 selected. So they are actually the pioneers here. These same cities at that time contacted the national government and asking us for commitment and support and intergovernmental cooperation. And the national government provided a letter of support. We did that twice. We did that for the selection, and we did that for the pilots. And these same cities argued to have room to experiment with legislation and regulation, but also for the joint innovative financing constructions. And I think, like you have said, that the national government has a role to play here, but also the European Commission and Net Zero Cities is very crucial in helping these cities move forward. So it has to be tailor-made. I think that point has been made. And I think the context of a lot of member states, but also of a lot of cities, are different. In a lot of member states, policy is different, legislation is different, governance structures are different, and there's also financial frameworks that are different. And the challenges then would be able to give and tailor-made, but also, look at these differences. So for us, it's very important that the lessons that are learned by the 7 or by the 100, that they are also brought back to the rest of the Dutch municipalities, because we have 320 of them, and they are hopefully willing to take steps as well and be involved. So to move forward, we needed something cross-cutting, place-based, we needed something participatory, and the idea of a national support structure was born, and it was made concrete after research and also multi-level input. So the Ministry actually of the Interior, of which my mandate has been approved, or the minister, assumed quite an active role in this. We're often also seen as the mother ministry for all the municipalities and provinces. So my role personally, not from the very start, but quite often, or very soon, was to create and to get this NSS, as we would call it, started. And get all parties involved. And actually one of the, I think, hardest jobs was to get ministries involved. And in doing this, I also needed to have a story to tell. So I visited a lot of Dutch cities, and I spoke to a lot of European cities to listen to their story and to understand, what actually is going on, what you need, what are the challenges. And if you look at the NSS, it is something to bring coherence and accelerate this effort within departments. And the cities actually, in this sense, will remain in charge. They are responsible for achieving their own climate ambitions. And it's demand-driven, so they will actually provide us with concrete cases that within a national context, because we believe that the concrete cases on a European level should be made to the Commission and to the net zero cities. So we're more focused on the national context. And this is also a learning infrastructure will be built to actually, move all the municipalities forward. So we would say the NSS is like an infrastructure for a rapid intergovernmental response. But it's still in the beginning, so we still need to prove it works. So this national cooperation structure, because a lot of the cities said support, no, we want cooperation. We don't want support, we also want cooperation. So it consists of 7 cities, 3 ministries. Actually, this month actually, the 3 ministries said okay. And the Association of Municipalities is on board to make sure that there's a transfer to the other municipalities. And we have a national enterprise agency there for the project management. The activities are actually quite lean. So we refer to existing programs because we believe that that's where you have to start. There's questions on existing programs nationally, that's where you should start. Then you want to do breakthroughs and deep dives. And obviously you need to retrieve, scale up, and standardize a lot of lessons. So that's pretty much about the NSS, and I think about the 7 Dutch cities, because I asked them for input to sit here. They were very pleased, I think, and they are positive toward the mission and its approach. But they also have their own local process to go through. And at the same time, they have increased and deepened their cooperation, which I think is one of the spin-offs, I think, of this mission, is that the cooperation between the cities. They have a periodic, I think they meet each other every 2 weeks. They have a joint pilot together, which also binds them, the 7, and each of them is going to develop a climate-neutral district, which is also going to bundle all the financing, and they have mutual coordination structures. So anyway, so I think together they would increase the impact, and I think that's the benefit of being a forerunner is, to have more impact together for all of us. So, yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, and I'm very much looking forward next week to visiting Groningen and then The Hague to take forward the conversation with the city representatives directly, but then also with some of your colleagues in ministry. So, and I think you've answered sort of both my questions in one go, your role as urban envoy, but also sharing with us some of the feedback from the 7 Dutch cities. So, and I'm very conscious of the time, so I want to move on to sort of a final quick fire round of questions. We're, I think, at a really crucial moment in the life of the mission. We've got a year or so of collective experience. We've got some really exciting progress with the first 12 Climate City contracts. We're starting to understand, perhaps collectively, the challenges of building and then delivering an effective investment strategy with all its necessary dimensions. And so I'd like to take advantage of the distinguished panel we have here to have a very quick fire round of, for each of them, what is the one thing that needs now to happen to consolidate and take the success of our mission to the next level. And I'd like to start with Mayor Bock, please.
The engagement of our citizens, I think, is the key point. As I mentioned before, it's a top-down but bottom-up perspective. And we have not just to send information to the people, but communication with the people is different than communication to the people. So if you do not have our citizens on board, our success is not going to happen. I mentioned before that every euro in my country, every leu, the leu is currency of Romania, every leu you spend must be spent in accordance with the climate neutral city perspective. So that's important, the mindset from top down. For example, I'm financing the metro system in the city. We are financing also 15 minutes walk distance for a new district, according with the climate neutral cities. But also on a smaller scale, Green Friday policy. So you travel Friday by free with the public transport to encourage the public transport, or to buy electric buses by 2028 to be the very first city in Romania to have a green public transport. So that's the mindset. And the last one, which I want to make a proposal from the European Committee of the Regions, to have a joint common procurement for electric buses in Europe. All of us trying to buy electric vehicles. Let's have a joint procurement in order to speed up the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now the same question to Mayor Ave for Turku. One thing.
As a mayor, I always prefer actions over political speeches. And I really hope that this mission will prove that, and we as cities, together with the Commission, can prove that we can take actions over the talks as well and reach our goals and share our best practices in a way that could be scalable for everyone.
Great, thank you. Mayor Algan.
If I had to say one thing, so I will follow the rules because I'm a good Swede, I would say scale up. We almost have all the answers already to address climate change, but now it's time for implementation on a large scale. A few good examples scattered over Europe won't save this planet. So, but that is really tricky because we get national funding for innovation, and it can be generated in almost any national and international level. But to scale up where the market isn't really in place and the business model isn't really in place, that is really tricky. That's a tricky part of the system. So I think that, but that is the most important thing. Of course, we need new innovations, but most of the innovations we need to reach climate neutrality by 2030, they already exist. Yeah. We just have to use them and scale up.
Yeah, thanks very much. So Hannah, as chair of the board, your one recommendation, please.
I wouldn't say something one, because it's to me it's the process of how we have to follow the implementation and the progress, because to achieve something in 2030, it's necessary to work hard, during these years, and maybe some certain things will be blocked, and we have to have instrument to unlock what is blocked.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Karen, and you can have two things, because I deprived you your second question.
I actually have a whole list, but I'll try and keep to two. Okay.
Two.
Well, yeah. I think one of the first things I would like to say is that this mission goes beyond Horizon. It is Horizon by name, I would say, but it goes further than that. It's more than a research program. I would say it's an implementation program, because the biggest challenge is the executing of exhilarating action on the ground. And it's with the current knowledge we have, the innovation, the involvement of citizens, but also the implementation power of funding. And this is where the mission label hopefully should come in handy. And just to, I could say, things about we would need more integrated efforts, we need more synergies, and we need to tackle regulatory sandboxes, seeing I'm coming from national government. But I think I would just like to end this, this last question with, I would say, no guts, no glory. So guts, leadership, and perseverance.
Wow. Well, thank you all very much, and I'm not sure I can, draw such a rich and stimulating discussion to any sort of complete conclusions. But what we've heard is working with citizens, working together breaking silos across different traditional boundaries, involving all actors from the start, whether that's the private sector or other public authorities, scaling up that the technology exists. It's not a research program, first and foremost. It's a focus for delivery and a sort of catalyst for developing and implementing. And there I love your point about, action. We can talk for a long time, but what, I remember from when I met you all first a year ago was the real energy and mobilization in the room, that you are local actors and you are used to producing solutions for people's lives. And that is what we so much need. And that is the leadership that you are showing from this panel. It's the leadership, I know, which everyone in this room is taking back to their communities. And so I'm really looking forward to the continuation of the discussions today. I know we won't shy away from the difficult discussions. This is new for us as well. And the European Commission, Net Zero Cities, does not have all the answers. And we are very keen to understand from you during this conference and as we meet you in other contexts, what is going right, what and where we can do more to support you. And I found this panel really very, very thought-provoking. And so, want to thank you all. I hope we can applaud, although you've been very generous in your applause for every comment. So it's obviously been a very sort of positive contribution. But a final round of applause before I hand back to Katerina for.